talk. I'll be talking about beyond the brief and how we can as creatives, um, you know design from a strategic, intentional point of view, and design give make designs that actually have emotional impact. So, what to expect from this talk? I'll be talking about myself, my journey into design, uncovering what really powers stunning design from my experience. Moving from execution to strategy and navigating emotional layers of creative work. So about me, I am an industrial product designer and experience designer. I currently design, for the wellness and beauty industry with a company called the Beauty Tech Group. An undergrad degree in graphics and a master's in integrated industrial design from Loughborough University in the UK. I'm also proud to say I'm the winner of the 2020 X Prize Award, the Next Gen Mask Award, which is a prestigious award. I was the first African to win that prize, and that's pretty much one of the things that's really sets me up on this journey, in this industrial design journey as a career per se. Outside of design, I enjoy football. I'm sure a lot of us enjoy football. I enjoy football, martial arts. I love cooking. I love fitness. I love traveling and having a nice time. At the moment, I'm self-learning the piano, and hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be able to string a couple symphonies for you to see. Yeah. So here's a bit of sort of snapshot of my journey to date, from my time in Futa, studying industrial design, and up until now, leading the product development team of the Beauty Tech Group, where they do lots of beauty devices and all. It's not been a straight path, and I hope I'll be able to show that by this sort of, curvy path, and a lot of, downturns and all, slips by the way, but this just sort of shows a bit of a snapshot. So yeah, I did a bit of time at Pandos, did some time with No Pay Project, General Electric. I even did some things outside of what I'm doing now. I did more multimedia design with Center for CCSI, that's in Abuja, and then did some NF things, designing PPE products and things like that. And then working on the UX side of things and also the physical products. So safe to say I have, good experience designing physical and digital products. And that's like what I wanted to show with this, and just to show where I am right now. Hopefully by the time we talk next, will probably be, different experience. So let's just dive straight into what we are here for. So uncovering what powers stunning design work. So we often see beautiful products, interfaces, experiences, and think, wow, the designer must be a genius. But the truth is, stunning design is really about the moment of brilliance. It's about deeply understanding why something matters. Early in my career, I chased trends that I saw on Behance, Core 77, if you know that, Dribble and Co, which was a good starting point. Always a good place where it was a copy like an artist, But designing extraordinary sort of things and experiences, it needs to be contextually relevant to the product, to the problem you're trying to solve, and it has to be original. So it's quite sensitive, and so good design listens, and it's a response. So that's the myth of magic. There is no magic anywhere. It's just really being observant and paying close attention, and to what you're trying to solve. So stunning design obviously is rooted in curiosity, always asking the five whys, asking why it's a level deeper, a level down the line. So if someone tells you they want to design a product for this, you ask them why they want to do that. I'm not just stop there, but you ask why again do they want to do that. So it's pretty much trying to understand the relevancy of the ask in the first place, rather than just jumping straight on to say yes, yeah, let's begin to design. But asking those why would mostly pay dividends, in the sense that it helps you to understand, on a very fundamental level, why you have to even design that, if it's even worth designing in the first place, the ethics and and all of that thing about designing. So that's for that. So still on how to uncover the power of stunning design is, empathy over ego, listening like you're wrong is something I always like to say. I remember in some of my interviews, or one of my interviews, I was asked the question of, what how I respond to criticism and things like that. And one of the things I said was, I always say is I have strong opinions, but I hold them very lightly. I don't hold them strongly. Is what I'm trying to say. So while I believe in things, I believe that what you think is right today could be proven wrong tomorrow. If you guys remember, there was a time back in Nigeria when you were told that for you to be tall, you had to eat beans. So if you were in a class and they said you should list the types of classes of food and the examples, and you listed beans, most times it will be under protein. But did you know that beans is actually more carbs than protein? Whereas if you told someone then that the person could actually argue with you and start a fight. The point is what you think is right today, sometimes could be as a result of a pervasive belief which is which runs quite widely, and it's thought to be true, but with time can be proven otherwise. So generally you can have strong beliefs, but your strong beliefs you shouldn't hold them too strongly because it could be wrong. So in this, as it comes to design, always having the urge to I've always had the urge to design, to defend my work. But studying design is not really about defending your work. It's about letting go, you see. Some of the best works I've done came from an uncomfortable feedback, user tears or someone saying, this doesn't feel right. So, the moment you drop your ego, you'll be able to uncover a deeper truth to things. So it's safe to say that, you need to be able to. It's nice to have ego, but when it comes to design, you want to be able to distinguish and know when your ego is driving a design decision and when, it's the user. At the end of the day, you're designing for the user and not yourself. So while we are still on how to, uncover powerful, uncover what powers learning design, we'll talk about obsessing with invisible details. I've tried to use pictures that showcase me in my actual, in my reality, either in the past or present, just so that you have a sense of what it is that I do, and gives a bit of picture into my life. As a designer, as an industrial designer, I do a lot of physical products, and I find myself fiddling with details, and sometimes I'm just caught up, in a moment, thinking about things or just obsessing over things. And if you notice, it can be quite an awkward sight, instead of just looking at the person, I'm looking and obsessing over things. So, but this is something that actually fuels my creativity, because where people just see things as as a product or as a line, I'm seeing things as two curves coming together, or seeing things as, oh, okay, I think I know why they did it. Well, I'm asking, oh, where is the pattern line? How was this made? Was this injection molded? Was this, what was the thinking? What material is this? So I'm obsessing over it, because at the end of the day, as a designer, you're trying to build your mental visual library. So the things that you consume, and that's why I love traveling. I love to go places and see things, because it helps me to build a broad spectrum of ideas and inspirations and mood board, so to say. Here is this is when I was working with Johnson and Johnson, just working on some new products for them and just trying to finesse some fonts and things. So stunning design lies in the invincible, the micro interaction that comforts the user, the copy that feels like human, the form that doesn't make you think. You just see some products and they just work. You don't even have to think so much. Just like this just works, and those are the best designs because they don't shout. They just work. So I once spent hours finessing the tactility of a button. Why? Because it gives someone control at the right moment. No one thanked me for it, but the experience flowed. Designers who obsess over what people feel but don't see will create the unforgettable. So at the end of the day, we are emotional what's it called, drivers. That's the power you have as a designer, because it's beyond. Yeah, we absorb through the physical, but that physical, will transcend that and go into the subconscious level, and that's how people feel. So that's the power that you hold to wield people's and to stir people's emotions and feelings. Yeah, so it's also about the purpose and not the perfection. We need to chase meanings and not metrics. We live in a day and age where people are talking, are quickly measured on KPIs. If you're in the sports, if you're into sports, you know that people are talking about, goal ratio or your what's it called, your goal per minute ratio and things like that. And it's just taking the beauty from the game. And now people are thinking about, okay, this person is able to cover this much distance in the field, whereas that takes away the actual emotion from the act of football. The same thing when it comes to designing. So we want to design in a way that it's not just followed by metrics of, yeah, it has to be, we have to do this number of products or have this number of buttons or this number of of this certain sales per se. At the end of the day, yes, that's the business goal. It's the commercial purpose of design, because yeah, if you're not making money, then there's nothing to do. But you want to make sure that it's rooted in deep purpose, and then there's an impact. So you're asking yourself things like, what change are we trying to make in someone's life? That's the impact, the purpose of the design. So that way you're able to design things that would actually hit, the core of the user's being, and that's what will drive whether they purchase a product or not at the end of the day. So moving on, would be talking about moving from execution to strategy. I think it's a very interesting part that a lot of designers who spend years honing their skills and trying to perfect their use of a particular software sometimes lose track of the most important thing: strategy. So strategy is not the most important part of web. It's not the most important part of graphics. It's not the most important part of industrial. It's the most important part of every design. It's literally the most vital part. And if you stay in execution mode too long, you become the last person in the room, when ideally you should be the first person. Strategy talks about why a design should even happen in the first place. It talks about what's the approach, and how do you tie that approach to the ultimate business goal of the design. And that's what the stakeholders and the business stakeholders want to hear. You can talk about how the job shadow, or there's a chamfer curve, the particular radius and all that. That's what belongs to them. They want to hear, how does this convert to them? So if you are able to talk the language of business, as well as also tying it with the design, it makes you a very valuable person. So there's a shift that begins to happen. The strategy isn't someone else's job. It's your job as a designer. People begin to listen to you even more in a room when you're having conversation, not just, you're the hand that actually does the work, but you're the one who's able to, tie these things together and tie it into the business goal. So like I said, the shift starts when you begin to ask better questions. This also is it's a very strategic thing to do. This picture is when I was at Realize Design. We used to do a lot of brainstorming before even going into like the design process and asking very strategic questions. So strategic designers don't just take briefs, or we interrogate them. I started showing up differently in meetings instead of asking when do you need this by. So I ask questions like, what outcome are we aiming for? You see, and what's the user's biggest pain here? Is this the right problem to solve in the first place? And things like that. So you're probing on a deeper level. You're asking those whys, those 5 whys. So it just it differentiates you really from just someone who is just designing for designing's sake. You're designing and you understand exactly how this fits into the other realms of the businesses, from the marketing to the sales, to the commercial, to even the other technical aspects of things. Still on how to move from execution to strategy and design. For you to do this successfully, I always say you should zoom out to see the system. So there's a system at play in every organization, and with every sort of brief. There's a larger system. But if you're tunnel vision too much, which I'm being quite guilty of a lot, being so tunnel vision into something because I'm trying to really finesse things. But if you really want to grow as a designer, this is just a realization, is the more you're able to to delegate those very little, those things that takes your time and look at the bigger picture, the quicker you would grow. And this is something that's in one of, I mean, a manager told me some time back, and it's just so funny because as a designer, you think, you need to finesse and master, hone your craft and all of that. But you need to do that as well as being able to be strategic. And to do that, you need to be able to zoom out to see how everything ties together. What are the fine prints in what you're trying to do? What you're obsessing over? Is it really important to the business? Like, could you just spend, a fraction of the time you're spending on that, and dedicate more time to doing things that are, more relevant based on how they fit within the bigger system? So that's the essence of you being able to see the bigger system, just zooming out. Sometimes just stop being so tunnel vision, just zoom out into that. Then, so also being able to move from execution to strategy is redefining the designer's role. So what powers tunnel design? So if you think in terms of outcome and ask better questions, then speak across disciplines and also connect craft. What this is saying is it's for you to be strategic, you will be thinking more not just in terms of what the actual thing at hand is, but how it's what the outcome is supposed to be on a larger scale of things, and ask better questions, not just what color should this be and everything. It's like, yeah, what's the demography, or how does it what are the past performances, or who are the competitors and how have they performed. Sometimes the questions you ask, those who said the brief don't even have the answers to it, but that would activate a sort of thinking and make them realize that, okay, you actually, you're onto something, and they'll begin to probe. And before you're even, you're a step closer to the solution, to finding that sort of click moments that ties everything together. So now, we'll be talking also now about the how to navigate emotional layers of creative work. As a creative person, it's not surprising that we have a very strong sense of attachment to what we do because of the emotion and the time it's taken to perfect that. And it's also an art. So with art, there's a lot of emotion that comes with art, and having dedicated so much time to doing things, you just have this sort of attachment, sort of strength to it. So, but when it comes to when you work within a larger team, and you work within multinational teams and multi-million-dollar businesses, you realize that there isn't so much thought given to your emotions, if you know what I mean, because you're just a piece of the larger system of the puzzle for the entire system, to actually convert. So no one is really thinking, okay, does this person feel bad that we're not going with it? You could have spent hours, in the studio coming up with concept, and at the end of the day, you have one stakeholder who just says something like, oh yeah, that's trash, we're not going to go with that. And clearly doesn't mean it's from a derogatory point of view, but obviously the approach or the manner of conveyance will be, was what would have put you off, obviously because you put time into it, but you're able to think beyond that, understand that, okay, you just said it, but the point is that maybe it doesn't really resonate with them. So how do you detach that sort of emotional thing to them with the things you've done? So when it comes to design, there are lots of, work we don't show that goes behind the scene, and we all, no matter the sort of design that you do, graphics, motion, multimedia, any kind of design, there are lots of, the creative process can be a very messy one. In that process, there are times when you feel like, you must have experienced the imposter syndrome, when you just feel like, maybe this isn't really, you're not as good as you're supposed to be, but in reality, it's just a way, because of, the way the industry is, and you're seeing how other people are doing things. You don't know what their own, behind the scene is. So you're comparing your own behind the scene to their own to what they are showing. So being able to distinguish that, I know that everyone's journey and everyone's timeline is different, and that would help. But it's just the reality. Like, there's always that imposter syndrome. Talking to you now, maybe there's a bit of it, but maybe I've been able to navigate that and say, okay, yeah, this is my reality now, and do the work that actually gets me closer to that reality. Is how I'm able to overcome that. Also being able to look beyond stakeholders or team members scrapping weeks worth of work, can be quite depressing. Well, at the end of the day, you're one of the things I always tell myself is like I design for the users and not for myself. So if you think of it that way, if ideas are not, I mean, if some ideas are scrapped, they are scrapped because maybe they were not meant to be, and you just think very loosely. Like I said, hold on to your those things quite loosely. Don't hold to heart so much because it's all part of the process. Um, Obviously, wanting to showcase polished products and all of that is nice. But it's just they are the unshown part of designs. There's also the um, feeling is a feature, not a flaw. So what I was trying to say here is that separating your emotions from work. A lot of times, I feel like you need to be professional, you need to be objective, and that you don't want to attach your emotions to things, but the emotional attachment to things is usually what makes you a creative person. If you think about it, so embrace it. Do not think, oh, you don't have to be emotional. You've learned that emotional reactions like frustration, your intuition, or your excitement, they're all signals to a good design and not a noise. They tell us something that they tell us when something isn't quite right or when it finally is. In physical product design, you feel it in your gut when something clicks. That's not ego. It's just that's crafts meeting care. I think I like the way that's phrased. Craft meeting care. So you just know that something works together, and um, your emotion tells you. So there's a bit of science and art to it. So while you've done all of the analytics and all of that, you know when something works because it's just an emotional layer, an emotional connection. So that um, So the key takeaways from my talk so far will be that stunning design comes from curiosity, not just skill. You can learn. I remember, being on this talk now, and Femi will be a witness. There's a time, as far back as 2011, 2012, when we used to, we just wanted to learn everything. It's like, yeah, we're gonna learn Smart 4D. I'm so good at it. We learn Photoshop, learn so good at it, learn everything, just be so good at it, and you're like perfect, trying to perfect that. And as you're learning one thing, another software is coming out again. Like, actually, you need to learn that one because sleepless nights. It's just you can't keep up with it. The truth is, the higher you grow and the older you get, the less concerned you will be about keeping up with it. So what you need is the curiosity, the principles, and that can be applied onto whatever tools you find yourself you come across. So don't be too carried away with learning every tool out there, especially in this time and age where like AI. Every time I wake up, I go on LinkedIn. There's one new tool that does something else in AI. I'm like, okay, what else? What else do we have to do? So it's going to be hard to keep up with, but you make sure you have the principles, and that's why it's going to be hard for people who do not have the principles of design, who are just jumping on the bandwagon of AI to have sustainable career growth because they are learning tools and not principles. The other thing is emotion is a creative tool, not a distraction. So don't be dismissive of your emotions when it comes to design. They are a very good indicator for what is right and what's could be better. Um, Also, strategy begins when you zoom out. So I like the way that's phrased because when you're a bit too tunnel vision into things, you're just trying to finesse the lines and the kinks of the designs and all that. But that's not if you really want to grow as a business leader, down the line, you need to be able to see the strategy, which is the purpose, the ultimate why the ultimate why you need to ask for why for the design process is how you begin to tie things together and see, okay, is this even relevant? You know, then also craft is your voice. Use this with intention. So the craft that you have as a creative person is very powerful, and you can literally shape you can shape people's emotions, and you're pretty much on the psychological realm of expertise when it comes to design, because there's a lot of psychology that comes to this that comes with design in terms of your choice of color, choice of fonts, your how people interact with things, how they feel. You're doing a lot of physical, psychological sort of play there. So finally, you're not just a maker, you're a meaning maker, which is yeah, listen to what I said before about you giving meaning to things, giving life to things and how people interact with things is literally on a God level kind of thing. And just so you know that you're a very powerful person within that field. So once you're able to understand this, you know the power that you wield, that you can use it for good. I will stop here, and I hope my presentation hasn't been the most boring one. But let's just make it interactive and hear your questions.
Yes, and while we wait, I would just like to, make one or two recaps because it was as if Ifedayo picked into maybe my notes last week, and I'm very sure that we have the same mind, right? And one of the things he said subtly, if you heard, he spoke about outcome. Remember, I didn't speak about output. He spoke about outcome. That if you think about the outcome of something, right, you'll be able to, harness like the real reason, the power behind that, right? And he spoke a lot of things about what goes behind, talking about zooming out. Don't just collect your brief and just fly into it. You zoom out. Sometimes zooming out may mean taking a rest. Zooming out may mean traveling. Zooming out may mean, just getting inspiration. So we have questions here. So Christiana, please, you can go ahead to read the question to Ifedayo so you can,
All right. Okay. Okay. So the question is this: you mentioned the 5 whys.
Yeah.
Can you explain that deeper and what are the 5 whys?
Yes. Yeah. So thanks for the question. I think the name of the person that asked is Catalyst. That's a very interesting name. So yeah, with 5 whys, it's pretty much asking 5 steps down or 5 levels down, if you like, why something needs to be. It's not rocket science. It's just probing further. So if I say something like, so there's a proverb, an old proverb that is titled "For Want of a Nail," which is what I was trying to get out, and it reads like this: For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the message was lost. For want of a message, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail. So let me explain this, if it's not obvious enough yet. I think this is talking about, obviously, it's an old proverb, and it's the time of the nines, and the time of riders using horses and all of that. There's something called the horseshoe that they attach to the hoof of the horse, which just helps it to get more sort of momentum and move, and just prevent some sort of friction on that. So they use a nail to attach the horseshoe, because the way the hoof is designed, you can actually nail into the horseshoe, into the hoof, and the horse wouldn't even feel anything. So this proverb is talking about how a kingdom was lost. But if someone said to me that, okay, the kingdom, I want to design something, I'm just trying to make it all contextually relevant now, that I want to design something because because we lost the kingdom. I want to design a flyer, because I'm just trying something as basic. It might sound lame, but please bear with me. I want to design a flyer because a kingdom was lost. As a designer, as a strategic designer, let's put that word there. I wouldn't just be saying, okay, yes, it's going to cost you this. I'll be asking 5 steps down. So 5 steps down will be the first why will be, why was the kingdom lost? Then the person will say, oh yeah, because the battle was lost. One. I say, oh, why was the battle lost? I'll say, yeah, because the person will say, yeah, the rider's message was lost. Maybe the rider was supposed to deliver the message to the centurion or whatever, lost the message. That's 2. That's 3. Then I say, okay, why was the rider's message lost? They say, yeah, because the horse rider was lost. So the horse rider was supposed to deliver the message was lost. So why was the horse rider lost? So yeah, because of the shoe, because of the horseshoe, it was lost. So the horseshoe that was supposed to deliver the rider was lost. So the rider couldn't deliver the message, and then the message was lost. But that's not it. That's so the last why would be. So why was the horseshoe lost? The nail was lost. So that's the root cause. That's what they call the root cause analysis. So that's the root cause. So if we're to address that brief, we'll not be okay. How can we, design a better fitting or a horseshoe that wouldn't require a nail or a nail that doesn't come off or something like that. The analogy may be a bit iffy, but the point is asking five whys down takes you to the root cause of what you're trying to, and it applies to every other part of life. If you're trying to know why things aren't going well or something, you don't just go on the surface and be like, yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, there are fundamental workings that actually determine or that are responsible for the failure for a failed state, for a depleted system or person, or just lots of things that are not working. If you ask five whys, you get to the root of it. I hope that question, that analogy sort of gives an answer to it.
So we have another question here.
Okay.
It says, at what point in a design process do you know it's time to zoom out, to begin to think like a strategic designer who influences business outcomes? Are there signs in the workflow, team dynamics, or user feedback that signal that shift?
Okay, FK, that's a very thoroughly written question. I appreciate the effort you put into that. Thank you. I've been at different levels in my design journey, and it will be unfair for me to say that you can just you can just zoom out at at any point in time, because in reality, maybe depending on where you are, sometimes if you're on a junior designer role where you are sort of handed deliverables, like just given like fractional sort of like your work is set out for you. It's part of a larger system. So maybe just design this particular bit that fits into the larger system. Maybe it wouldn't be quite, sort of fitting to begin to ask why. Imagine asking your boss why. It'd be so funny. But anyways, so in that kind of situation, it's just, um, what's the word? Depending on the level that you are in your design, in your design career, it will be the being zooming out can come at different point. But I would say that from the point where you have a sort of say into the larger scope of work, then it makes sense to begin to ask, because before you begin to expend energy into committing so much of your effort into doing a design, you don't want to have done all of that and they're like, you realize that that's not. So the question of at what point would be is a two-pronged sort of answer and question. So depending on the level that you are, and depending on the stage of the design. So on the level, I would say from the level wherever even if it's junior or mid-weight level, at whatever point you are where you're sort of given the responsibility to lead a particular design course, that's a right sort of phase in your career to begin to ask, the to begin to zoom out, and see the bigger picture. I mean, not just being the hand that does the raise the icons and does things, but when you begin to see. So that's one. Before you go too deep into the process, you need to zoom out, and I think it's a cyclical thing, and it's an iterative process that should happen as along the way. Like when I do designs, for instance, I must have been tunneled in. I mean, there are different phases. There's a phase where I'm tunneled in to get all my juices flowing to get the best work done, and there's a phase where I like just zoom out and try to see, okay, how does this fit the brief? Does this answer the brief? Like why, is this really what I wanted to do, and do that. So it's not a one stop action or one stop phase. It's a sort of an iterative and cyclical process that you're going to have to carry on to zoom out continuously, as with one's life, to be able to see the bigger picture and see how everything fits. So I'm doing something. How does it fit within the larger frame or the larger scope of work? Um, yeah, I hope that answers the question, but feel free to let me know if you need a bit more. Yeah, FK, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you're about to say something.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
FK is just. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ifedayo. And before we probably go to the next question, if there's any other question, I would also like to add to what Ifedayo said, right? Using probably a diagram, because it's one of the illustrations I put inside the Whitespace Creatorverse. You remember, this is Whitespace Elite Circle. So the Whitespace Creatorverse, which is the business side of, the Whitespace itself. The profile, I put this illustration in the profile that I send to clients, right? So that they will know that we are not people that just run a linear flow. If I would mention something, he said it depends on where you are on the project, right? It depends on your level too. So let's even talk about where you are. You can be at the thinking stage. Let me try to share my screen, just like one second, right? So that you would get. Okay, so this is like the profile that we sent. So let me just go to the screen that talks about our process. So first, we said our process, right? Again, we're talking about zooming out. It says it's not about right or wrong way, but about creating, iterating, and improving. It's about improving systems and concepts that do not just convert input into output, but into outcome. Remember, we mentioned outcome. So in order for you to get a good outcome, you need to learn to zoom out. And another thing is, what is zooming out? Zooming out is just, okay, looking at the entire scope of the project from a bigger perspective, right? Don't look at it as a designer. Sometimes, again, it can require you just resting, right? But here is what I wanted to show. So we have a non-linear design process, and we put it to good use. Every communication and every communication, campaign project. So we empathize, we define, we ideate, we prototype, we test. Everything is not linear. See that green arrow, right? It's just telling us, okay, where we start from on a normal day. We empathize, we see, okay, what's the problem? Like Ifedayo said, we are turning down, okay, why did the message get lost? Why did the kingdom get lost? Oh, it was traced back to the shoe. That's where, okay, we've asked the questions, right? The 5 whys, and then we are empathizing. Oh, the shoe is a problem. I see. I can empathize. I can say, oh yeah, we've defined the problem. It is the horse. It's the nail, right? And then we begin to ideate. We prototype. We test. So sometimes you get to the prototype side, right, and discover that, okay, let me try to visit the definition of the problem, right? That's another way I can say, okay, let me zoom out. Let me come back here to see if I need to touch up some things. And then from here, you can say, okay, let's come back to prototyping. Now let's test. Oh, we've tested this thing. Let's go back to our ideation and see, the concept that we've designed for this thing, whether we need to change one thing or one thing or one thing. And then we can come back to prototyping. You say, okay, let's go back to empathizing to see if some of the prototype is really, really, right, accessing the empathy that we brought here. And then we can see, okay, we can see if it doesn't, redefine. So there is this non-linear workflow that inadvertently helps you zoom out. Sometimes you just get to say, you know what, let me just look at everything from the scratch again. Not that you are starting, but zooming out helps you, like in this way, this is another way that you can zoom out of any design process. And I don't think it's something that you have to go and study in school, how to zoom out. The more you do a project, or the more you work on design projects, the more you see that, oh, okay, this is how to analyze a problem. This is how to zoom out of a design, project here and there. So I hope with this viewpoint of mine. Thank you very much.
Yeah. In addition to what you said, I think everyone can also check the double diamond approach. If you have time, just Google it. Double diamond is a very sort of non-linear approach to designing. So just without trying to overflog the matter, you can check that out. But yeah.